It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The morning sun spilled through the stained glass windows of the old church, painting the floor with fragments of light. I remember staring at them, trying to calm my heartbeat, repeating her name like a prayer. Emily. In less than an hour, she would walk down that aisle, or at least that's what I believed. Guests were already arriving, smiling, laughing, snapping photos. My best man joked that I looked like I'd seen a ghost. Maybe, in a way, I had. Something in the air felt wrong, not tragic, just off. I brushed it away, thinking it was nerves. The last text I got from Emily was simple. On my way. That was at 10:03 a.m. By 10:45, she was gone. At first, no one panicked. Delays happen. Makeup, hair, photos. It's a wedding, not a military operation. But when the driver she'd hired said she never showed up to be picked up, the air in that church turned heavy. My chest tightened, my mind searching for logic that didn't exist. I called her, over and over, straight to voicemail. Her family was as confused as I was. Her phone was still at her apartment. Her wedding dress hung perfectly steamed on the rack. The bouquet we'd chosen together sat on the table, still wrapped in its ribbon. Every trace of her life was there, except her. The police said there was no sign of struggle, no reason to worry yet, but I knew something was wrong. You don't vanish 1 hour before your wedding and leave everything behind. I stood in that silent apartment, holding her veil in my hands, and realized something I'd never dared to think before. Maybe Emily wasn't taken. Maybe she left. People always imagine the wedding day as a fairy tale, flowers, music, and laughter echoing through a church filled with joy. But when you're the groom whose bride vanishes an hour before the ceremony, every sound becomes a question, every smile turns into pity. I remember standing there, surrounded by guests who didn't know what to do. Some whispered, others avoided looking at me at all. The priest kept checking his watch. Time didn't move the same way anymore. Her disappearance wasn't loud. There was no scene, no message, no goodbye. Just absence. The kind that gnaws at your sanity. One moment she existed. The next, she didn't. And somehow, that silence felt louder than a scream. I kept thinking there had to be an explanation. Maybe she'd had an accident. Maybe her car broke down. Maybe she panicked. But deep down, I already knew. Emily wasn't coming back that day. People tell you to hold on to faith when you lose control. But how do you pray when you don't even know what you're praying for? Safety? Answers? Forgiveness? I didn't know where to aim my hope anymore. All I had was the echo of her last message. On my way. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Mysterious Love Echoes, where real stories meet real hearts. Leave a like if you believe in second chances, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, your city and your country. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about a missing bride. It's about how far love can stretch before it breaks. And the terrifying truth I uncovered when I tried to find her. The morning began like a dream I'd waited my whole life to wake into. The scent of roses filled the air. The faint hum of music drifted from the reception hall below the church. Everything was set. The cake, the candles, the vows folded neatly in my jacket pocket. I kept telling myself that after today, nothing would ever be the same. I was right about that. Emily and I had been together for 4 years. We met at a bookstore when she dropped a copy of The Great Gatsby on my foot. She laughed, apologized, and I told her it was the best injury I'd ever had. From that moment, she became the center of everything I wanted. Gentle, curious, a little mysterious. She loved old songs, black and white films, and writing letters she never sent. Maybe I should have known there were pieces of her I'd never get to read. That morning I woke before sunrise. My groomsmen were asleep in the next room, the tucks pressed and hanging near the window. I checked my phone, a message from her at 5:14 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Too excited. See you soon, my love. I smiled at the words, never imagining they'd be the last she'd ever send me. Around 9, I headed to the church early. I needed to see everything in place. The florist was finishing the arch, the photographer testing his camera. Every detail whispered her presence. Even the light through the stained glass felt alive, like it was waiting for her. I remember thinking, if happiness had a shape, it would look like this. But then came the first crack. Her maid of honor, Lily, arrived pale as paper. "She's not answering her phone," she said, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I laughed it off. She probably left it somewhere. You know, Emily. But her voice trembled when she added, her apartment door was unlocked. My stomach twisted. I told myself not to overthink, that maybe Emily had gone out early, that maybe she'd just forgotten something at her parents' house. But the more I tried to convince myself, the louder the silence grew. I called her. Voicemail. I texted her. No reply. Lily tried too. Nothing. The clock ticked mercilessly. At 10:30, I drove to her apartment. The building manager recognized me and let me in. The air inside was still, untouched, like a photograph frozen in time. Her makeup kit was open on the table, her dress hanging by the window, the bouquet we'd chosen together resting by the door, the stem still damp, the ribbon perfectly tied. It looked like she'd been about to leave, but she hadn't. On the nightstand, her phone blinked with unread notifications, missed calls, messages, reminders. But there was one thing that froze me in place, her engagement ring. Not on her finger, but sitting carefully on top of a folded piece of paper. My name was written on it in her handwriting. My breath caught, my hands trembling as I reached for it. The note was short. If I could explain, I would. Please forgive me. That was all. No reason, no clue. Just those words, as if she'd vanished not only from my life but from her own. I sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at that ring, at that note, feeling the walls close in. When I finally left the apartment, the sunlight outside felt wrong, too bright for the kind of darkness I carried. People passed by, laughing, living, unaware that my world had split open. Somewhere between that unlocked door and the empty church, the woman I loved had turned into a ghost, and I had no idea why. The hours after Emily disappeared stretched like years. Every second was a question that had no answer. I drove aimlessly, retracing the same streets she used to walk. The cafe where she liked to read, the park where we first kissed, the florist where she always bought lilies for her mother's grave. Nothing. No one had seen her. It was as if the earth had opened quietly and swallowed her whole. By evening, the police finally agreed to file a missing person report. Adults vanish for all kinds of reasons, the officer said, trying to sound reassuring. Sometimes they just need space. But his eyes betrayed his doubt. He'd seen enough cases to know this one was different. There were no fights, no signs of cold feet, no reason for her to run. Only that note. Those 6 haunting words. If I could explain, I would. I went back to the church that night. The candles were still burning, the petals scattered across the aisle. The air smelled like wilted roses and lost promises. I sat in the front pew, her veil still folded in my pocket, and prayed for the first time in years. God, please, just let her be safe. Let there be a reason. But faith doesn't always come when you beg for it. Sometimes it hides until you've been broken enough to see it. Days passed. Reporters called, neighbors whispered, and I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, but it was never her. Lily stayed with me through it all, leaving coffee on the table and pretending to believe we'd get good news soon. She wouldn't just leave you, she said softly. She loved you too much. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. One night, I found myself sitting on the floor of her apartment again. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a sign, maybe forgiveness. I opened her drawers, her journals, even her laptop. Everything looked normal until I found a folder tucked behind old receipts and letters. Inside were envelopes addressed to people I didn't recognize. None were mailed. Each one was sealed. Curiosity turned to dread. I opened the first envelope. It wasn't a love letter. It was an apology. To a woman named Sarah. "You were right," Emily had written. "The truth always finds a way to surface." My pulse raced. Who was Sarah? And what truth was Emily talking about? I read the second letter, then the third. Each one hinted at something buried, something she couldn't forgive herself for. When I reached the final envelope, my hands were shaking. It wasn't sealed. The paper inside was newer, the handwriting uneven. It said, "If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into my past. Please understand. I never wanted you to find out this way." My throat tightened. Find out what? I stared at that letter for hours, waiting for clarity that wouldn't come. Every line drew me deeper into a world she'd kept hidden, a world I hadn't known existed. The Emily I loved had been real. But there was another version of her, too, one wrapped in secrets and regrets. The next morning, I visited her mother's old friend, Margaret, the only person who knew Emily since childhood. When I asked about Sarah, her expression changed instantly. "You shouldn't go digging into that," she said, her voice trembling. "Some things are meant to stay buried." That phrase echoed in my head the entire drive home. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The shadows in my apartment felt heavier, the silence thicker. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe I was finally realizing the truth. Emily didn't just disappear. She was running from something. And whatever it wasn't finished with me yet. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's handwriting. "I never wanted you to find out this way." Those words repeated in my mind, like a whisper that wouldn't fade. By sunrise, I was pacing my living room, coffee untouched, her letters spread across the table like evidence of a crime I didn't understand. I kept asking myself, what kind of secret could make someone vanish hours before saying, "I do"? The next morning, I called Margaret again. This time, I didn't ask. I demanded answers. Her voice wavered, then broke. "Emily wasn't who you think she was," she said. "There were things she was trying to leave behind." When I pressed for more, she sighed. "She promised me she'd tell you someday, but she ran out of time." Then she hung up. That single sentence hit harder than any truth could have. She ran out of time. It made it sound like Emily wasn't missing. She was hiding. From who? From what? I went back to her letters, searching for patterns, names, anything. Sarah, Jonathan, Redwood, August 9th. It was all there, coded pieces of a life that didn't fit with the woman I knew. At first, I thought maybe it was about money, debt, blackmail, something ordinary that spiraled out of control. But when I looked up the name Sarah Redwood, everything changed. The first result that appeared was an article from 6 years ago. Local woman found dead after charity embezzlement scandal. My pulse quickened. Emily's hometown, her university. The same year she moved away and met me. I read every word of that article, my stomach tightening with every line. The victim, Sarah Redwood, had been Emily's college roommate. The police suspected someone else in the scheme, but never found enough proof. The case went cold. Emily never mentioned it. Never. And now, 6 years later, my bride had vanished an hour before the wedding. It didn't feel real. The woman who laughed when I burned the pasta, who cried during old movies, who held my hand at her mother's grave, she couldn't be part of something like that. Yet the clues kept pointing back to her. Maybe she wasn't guilty, but she was connected. Maybe someone didn't want her to talk. That afternoon, I drove back to her apartment. For the first time, I noticed a small envelope taped under her desk drawer, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it. Inside was a photograph, Emily and another woman, Sarah, I guessed, smiling in front of a charity banner. On the back, a message. If something happens, look for Jonathan. Jonathan. I searched my phone contacts, emails, social media. Nothing. Then I remembered something Emily once said. Some people aren't on the internet because they have too much to hide. I spent hours digging through old university directories and finally found a name. Jonathan Hale, former charity treasurer, vanished in 2018. That's when I realized Emily had been living in fear all this time. The anxiety, the sudden night terrors, the way she jumped when the phone rang. I thought it was stress. It wasn't. She was watching for something, or someone, to find her. Maybe she didn't run from me. Maybe she was trying to protect me. When night fell, I sat alone in her apartment once again. The city outside was quiet, the streetlights flickering through the blinds. I whispered her name, not expecting an answer, but then my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I hesitated before answering. A low voice came through the static. Slow, calm, deliberate. "Stop looking for her," it said. "You have no idea what you're walking into." Then the line went dead. The voice on the phone replayed in my head for days. I couldn't shake it, that cold certainty behind the words. You have no idea what you're walking into. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. But warnings only matter if you stop walking, and I didn't. Every time I thought about quitting, I pictured Emily's veil folded neatly beside her note, and something in me refused to rest. I went to the police with what I'd found. The letters, the photo, the name Jonathan Hale. They took the evidence politely, filed a report, and told me not to interfere with ongoing investigations. That was code for don't expect much. I'd seen that look before, the same one the priest gave me when I told him she might have run because of something bigger than us. No one believed me, but I believed her. Whatever Emily had done, whoever she'd been, I knew the woman I loved wasn't a criminal. She was scared, hiding. And if someone had warned me to stop looking, that meant I was getting closer to something real. The next day, an email arrived from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You're not the only one looking for her." My heart stopped. The message contained a single attachment, a video file. For a long time, I couldn't press play. When I finally did, I saw security footage of a bus terminal, the timestamp, the morning of our wedding. At first, there was nothing unusual. Passengers walking, luggage rolling. Then I saw her, Emily, wearing jeans, a gray sweater, and sunglasses. She wasn't running or crying. She was calm. She bought a ticket, looked over her shoulder once, and walked out of frame. The clip ended there. No destination listed, just gone. Seeing her alive should have brought me peace, but it didn't. It made everything worse. Why had she left so quietly? Why not tell me? The police confirmed the video was authentic, but offered no leads. Maybe she wanted a new life, one detective said. I wanted to scream. People don't vanish for freedom. They vanish for fear. The more I searched, the more I felt watched. My car alarm went off at random hours. I'd catch glimpses of figures in reflections, too fast to confirm. One night, a note was slid under my door. It read, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like her." There was no signature, no handwriting to trace. Just that quiet promise of danger. I hit rock bottom 2 weeks later. No sleep, no appetite. My apartment looked like a crime scene of obsession. Newspaper clippings, maps, printed emails. Lily begged me to let it go. "You're losing yourself," she said. "What if she doesn't want to be found?" I looked at her and said, "Then she shouldn't have left her heart behind." because mine still beat for her. That night I sat on the church steps, the same place where it all began. Rain fell in sheets, cold and heavy. I closed my eyes and whispered, "If you're out there, Emily, please give me a sign." For a long time there was only thunder, then my phone buzzed. A new message, no number, just a single line. "Meet me where it started." I froze. That phrase, "where it started," meant only one place, the bookstore. The one where she dropped The Great Gatsby on my foot all those years ago. I didn't think. I just drove. The streets blurred past, the city glowing like a fever dream. When I reached the bookstore, the lights inside were off. But through the window, I saw it. A single book placed on the counter, wrapped in a ribbon, and under it, a note addressed to me. The bookstore felt like a memory someone else had lived. Dust floated in thin beams of streetlight, and the old floorboards sighed under my steps. I didn't call the police this time. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Something about that message, "Meet me where it started," felt too personal for witnesses. The book sat on the counter just as before, wrapped in that same white ribbon. My name was written beneath it, but when I picked it up, it felt heavier than a book should. I slipped off the ribbon and opened the cover. Inside the hollowed-out pages was a small black flash drive taped to the paper. No letter, no explanation, just that. I took it home and stared at it for hours, afraid to see what waited inside. My laptop hummed as the file loaded, a single video titled, "If You Love Me, Don't Stop." I pressed play. The screen flickered, and there she was, Emily, my bride. Her hair pulled back, eyes red from crying, but her voice steady. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means they found me. I can't tell you everything. It's safer if you don't know. What happened in college wasn't an accident. Sarah tried to expose them. I helped her. They silenced her. And now they want to silence me." She looked over her shoulder. The camera shook slightly. "I thought marrying you would make it stop. That maybe if I built a new life, I could outrun what I did. But they followed me here. Jonathan's gone, and they'll come for anyone connected to him." Her voice broke. "That includes you." For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then her face reappeared, closer to the lens. "Don't look for me," she whispered. "Promise me, please. Whatever you find next, let it end there." A loud knock echoed through the speakers. She gasped, turning toward the sound. The screen blurred as the camera fell, catching only her feet moving toward the door. Another knock, then silence. The image froze on an empty doorway before the recording cut to black. I sat there, my pulse hammering in my ears, waiting for something, anything, to follow. But the video ended. No credits, no goodbye. Just that hollow quiet that feels like grief. The logical part of me said to hand it over to the police, to let them trace it, to be done with this. But logic doesn't live in the same place as love. I watched the video again, memorizing every sound, every flicker of light, every breath she took. And then I noticed something I hadn't before, a reflection in the mirror behind her, a figure standing in the doorway, watching. I froze the frame. The outline was blurred, faceless, but real. Someone had been in that room with her, and as I stared at the shadow, a chill slid through me, because I recognized the coat. I'd seen it once before, hanging on a hook at her apartment. It wasn't hers. It was mine. I closed the laptop slowly, the world around me shrinking into silence. My reflection stared back from the black screen, pale, sleepless, lost. Outside my window, a car engine started and idled for a moment before driving away. I told myself it was nothing, but as the sound faded, a message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have watched the video." They never found Emily. The flash drive disappeared from police custody before they could analyze it. The bookstore shut its doors a week later as if the universe itself wanted to bury the truth. People tell me to move on, to let her go. But how do you let go of someone whose absence still feels alive? Some nights I still hear her voice, faint, trembling, calling my name through the hum of static. Maybe it's just memory. Or maybe she's somewhere, still trying to reach me. I've stopped searching the streets, but I haven't stopped listening. Every raindrop, every flicker of light feels like her whispering, "Don't stop believing." So I keep a candle by my window, not for grief, but for faith. Because love doesn't always end where we expect. Sometimes it vanishes to lead us somewhere we couldn't have reached otherwise. And if Emily's out there, lost, alive, or something in between, I hope she knows that I never stopped waiting. Not for answers, not for closure, but for peace. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, what did you survive? Because sometimes the greatest mystery isn't the one we're trying to solve. It's the one that keeps our hearts beating even after love disappears.